The city of Covina and its surrounding area have always been a great place in which to live. What you are about to see are scenes that indicate some of the attributes of the wholesome life that Covina's earlier residents experienced. This program was sponsored by the Covina Rotary Club. It was presented to the people of Covina on the occasion of the 75th birthday of Covina in 1976. Most of the work involved in putting the photos on slides and arranging them in order was done by longtime resident Mr. Vern Job. The material help from the Covina Valley Historical Society is hereby acknowledged. Narration in 1977 is by Mr. William B. Temple, born in Covina in 1904. The Covina City Seal depicts the orange as the main industry of the early days. In 1882, Mr. J.S. Phillips purchased and later subdivided 1 square mile of the Rancho La Puente. This property consisted of land extending from what was later Grand Avenue on the east to Hollenbeck Street on the west, and from Front Street on the north to 660 feet south of Workman Avenue. Excepting the townside lots, each subdivision parcel consisted of 10 acres, and for many years the Covina City slogan was, "A mile square and all there." Of the following pictures, most were copied from original photos made by Mr. C.W. Tucker, shown here. He came to the valley in 1903 and was certainly a true historian in his own right. Mr. and Mrs. Will Griffith owned and dry farmed a large area southwest of Covina. Until water became available, most of the valley floor was formed to grain, with ever-increasing use of more and better, or at least more efficient machinery. By 1900, huge steam combines roamed the valley during harvest time. Citrus got its start when water was brought to the area. Covina is shown in the background from near 3rd and Dexter Streets at about 1887. Covina Irrigating Company, organized by J.S. Phillips to water his subdivision, built a tunnel 2,500 feet long under the bed of the San Gabriel River in the canyon north of Azusa. This tunnel, still in existence in 1977, literally stole the water from other users, but that is another story. Water from the tunnel, added to surface flow, was divided among users by the use of wooden weir structures at the mouth of the canyon. This was not as simple an operation as it sounds 100 years later. More modern cement structures were built, and by 1895, water entered a series of conduits and tunnels from a point about 5 miles upstream from the mouth to a penstock for delivery to the first powerhouse in the valley. Water from the powerhouse enters the Covina ditch, from where it starts its travel to the Covina area, or is diverted either to a spreading ground or back to the river, and as of 1977, this open ditch operated just as it did when built prior to 1884. Water storage in the early days was done by the use of reservoirs throughout the valley. This main reservoir of Covina Irrigating Company on the south side of San Bernardino Road west of Grand Avenue was started by placing a dam in the Charter Oak Wash to conserve its flow. Many improvements have followed through the years, and also many individual ranchers built private reservoirs, such as this one on the A.P. Kirchhoff Ranch on Glendora Avenue. South of Badillo Street is where this reservoir is, and it is covered now and serves Southwest Suburban Water Company. Water runs by gravity from the San Gabriel River through the Covina Irrigating Company ditch and pipeline system, and finally through a modern water treatment facility. It is then delivered into various water service agencies at a rate of up to 17 million gallons per day. Various wells and booster pumps augment this supply. The board of directors of Covina Irrigating Company in the early days was composed of hard-working, conservative, and very determined men. They are shown in the early 1940s in front of the original office building on East College Street. Hard work, a lot of capital, and much planning resulted in the final establishment of a flourishing citrus business. The Cook family owned this grove, extending from Citrus Avenue to First Street on the north side of College, as an example. Soon, many fine citrus groves covered the valley floor. Another example, the Mountain View Ranch, planted by Mr. C.H. Ruddock and owned for many years by the Barker Brothers furniture store family. This large ranch was on the east side of Grand Avenue, north of Ruddock Street. Orange trees sometimes grew to great heights, requiring ladders as tall as 25 to 27 feet for picking the fruit. Lemons, on the other hand, were kept pruned to a lower height, and 8-foot tripod ladders were used, as these trees are too brittle for the use of straight ladders. Fruit was first processed for market right in the grove. Then later, groups would join to build a packing shed, or pack together in the open, as shown. This is a cooperative effort on the part of members of the Brethren Church. As the industry expanded, so did the cooperative effort for more modern buildings and more efficient equipment. Oranges were first packed by hand in wooden boxes until minimum wage laws were applied to agricultural activities, and then the cost of training a packer became prohibited. This Covina Citrus Association scene was typical when thousands were employed as packers in the state, until about 1965, when mechanical packing in cardboard boxes proved to be more economical. Teams of horses or mules, usually owned by growers, were first used to haul fruit to the packing houses. Mr. Motter and his 2 daughters indicate this method. Trucks, of course, were later used. By 1940, there were some 20 packing houses from Irwindale to San Dimas. Each required a large labor force. This was the first employment for many people who came here from the east or from elsewhere. Covina was first to get many utilities installed. The black building in the back of this group of men attending a citrus meeting is a plant for making domestic gas from coal. This gas was piped throughout the town prior to the introduction of natural gas. The annual meetings of the cooperative citrus associations and water companies were great social events. A dinner was served at noon during a recess of the proceedings. The dinner was probably cooked by either a church group, a woman's club, or sometimes by the wives of directors and or employees. These dinners were money makers for those groups as a rule. In any event, everyone concerned came for dinner, whether or not they attended the formal business meeting. The last building built for orange packing was this modern plant of Covina Citrus Association, built in 1923. It was located at the north end of 3rd Street. Any special event called for a social gathering, such as this barbecue picnic to herald the coming of the Southern Pacific Railroad in 1895, or an annual picnic at Kenesha Park for all Sunday schools in the town. For some reason, this seemed to encourage the young folks in their attendance at the Sunday school of their parents' choice. This shows a political group who have engaged to train for a trip to a convention in 1903. The Southern Pacific Station at the north end of 2nd Street was the hub of industry until the auto trucks took over. Livery stables, there were 4 in 1912, competed for the distribution of the merchandise from each morning train to the downtown stores. In 1929, this Covina station handled the 3rd highest dollar volume of freight in the entire Southern Pacific system. Only New Orleans and Los Angeles were higher. Citrus and rock products were the principal shipments accounting for this record. Many farming innovations were first to be tried here. Irvin Reynolds built this tractor using a 1912 Buick as a basis. It was a failure. While waiting for young walnut trees to grow to commercial size, beans, alfalfa, or other produce was grown between the tree rows. Bean harvesting is shown. Walnuts flourished, especially in the area to the southwest of Covina. The trees grew large enough to shade the entire 40-foot area between trees. Irrigation was done by straight furrows or by various cross-check systems. Claire Job made money irrigating during school vacation period. Citrus pest control was first done by various methods of introducing cyanide gas under heavy canvas tents pulled over each tree and left for an hour. This work started in late afternoon and continued all night in good weather or until wind or dampness intervened. Pulling tents over large trees was really hard work, and strong men who could do this work were well paid. Cyanide came from Germany until World War I stopped shipments. About this time, Mr. John Bacigalupi, who later formed Peerless Spray Chemical Company in Covina, perfected a refined water-emulsible oil which, used as a spray, served as an all-purpose pest control material for many years. To reach the tops of the trees, crude towers were built on the first spray rigs, and spray rigs became increasingly more efficient and sophisticated, sometimes using 2 men on a hydraulically operated tower. Citrus is a warm weather crop, so temperatures below 28 degrees Fahrenheit sometimes called for heating. Oil or coke was generally used. These were called smudge pots in the early days, and they really smudged the atmosphere, to use the term mildly. As time went on, more improved models brought the term orchard heater into general use. 1 heater to 4 trees was the accepted practice, and the number lit depended on the temperature at the moment. Here again, high school boys were the most reliable labor force, and they tried to sign up for the coming winter with growers in the coldest areas, thus assuring the most calls and thus the most money for their efforts. On rare occasions, such as 1932 and 1949, snow actually covered the valley floor. Floods were considered as simply acts of God, and little flood control was practiced along the washes until a disastrous flood in 1916 resulted in the formation of the Los Angeles County Flood Control District, and a bond issue was passed which started true flood control measures. All bridges for the San Gabriel River and the Rio Honda at El Monte, at Bassett, and at Azusa were washed out in 1910 and again in 1914, as was the Grand Avenue Bridge over San Dimas Wash in 1914. San Dimas Wash used to flow under a bridge on San Bernardino Road east of Vincent Avenue. This wash had no outlet to the south, so water spread out all over the countryside during heavy rainfall. The flood in 1916 trapped the Model T Ford, which was valiantly trying to deliver the mail. This is at a location near the present West Covina City Hall. Notice the mail sack resting on the steering post. In the early 1900s, a barbecue was held to celebrate the arrival of the Pacific Electric Railroad. This railroad was forever after called the PE. The first PE car ran on Badilla Street between Barranca and Hollenbeck only, in order to protect a franchise until 1907, when the line was extended to Covina from El Monte. Covina thus became the eastern terminus of the PE until 1911, when rights-of-way were obtained for its extension to the east. This railroad, featuring passenger transportation, performed a great service. It serves cities and towns from Redlands to Los Angeles and to all the beaches from Santa Monica as far south as Newport Beach. This crowd is gathered to watch the return toward Los Angeles of the first PE excursion, called the Orange Empire Excursion. This was a featured tourist attraction for visitors from the east. By 1940, large, all-steel, very fast and comfortable 3- and 4-car trains were a common sight going through Covina. The local PE station shown in the background was on the north side of Badilla Street, just east of 2nd Street. At each half mile, a comfortable waiting room was built for the convenience of passengers, such as at Banna Street, Grand Avenue, Hollenbeck, Azusa Avenue, Lark Ellen, and Vincent. Covina Valley people have always been proud of their schools. The first Covina school was built in 1894 with volunteer labor and donated lumber. It was on the east side of Citrus Avenue between San Bernardino Road and School Street. This land had been deeded by J.S. Phillips for use as school property only. In 1899, a much larger school was built on the same site. 2 upstairs rooms served as a high school until 1902. Pupils from each school in the entire district came to this building for domestic science and woodworking classes 1 day each week. The building was torn down following graduation in June 1919, and by September of the same year, a new, more modern school was ready for classes on the same spot. This building served until the 1960s, when the school board decided that this was not a proper place for a school. People of the time remember the difficult time the wreckers had in demolishing this building. The land then reverted back to the heirs of the Phillips family. The first high school built on the south side of San Bernardino Road at Park Street was built in 1902. It served until 1907 as a high school. Then, until 1919, it was used as a kindergarten and first and second grade. It was not torn down, having been purchased by the Masonic Lodge and moved to the southwest corner of 2nd and School Streets, where it continued to serve as a Masonic temple for at least another 60 years. The high school on San Bernardino Road was replaced by a more modern and larger building on the west side of Citrus between Puente and Dexter Streets. A large crowd came to witness the laying of the cornerstone in 1907. For many years, this high school served all the grammar schools in the district, including Covina, West Covina, Baldwin Park, Irwindale, called Merwin, Lark Ellen, and Charter Oak. When the Covina Valley Unified School District was formed, a still newer high school was built on the southwest corner of Puente and Hollenbeck Street. School busing started many years ago in Covina, as this 1912 model, hard rubber-tired, chain-drive Mack truck indicates. Note the rolled-up side curtains that were rolled down during rain. The first Charter Oak Grammar School was built at the southwest corner of Cienega and Bonnie Cove in 1894. The bus driver stood for this photo of the 11 well-dressed Charter Oak graduates with the teacher and principal, who also taught, in June 1919. The really first school in the valley was called the Center School. It was part of the Azusa School District. It stood on this spot where later the Lark Ellen schools have been built. Note the windmill and water tower. Later, this area was incorporated in the Covina School District. A later Lark Ellen school was built in 1919 on the same site at the corner of Cypress Avenue and Lark Ellen Street. The same year, the new schools were built at Covina and Charter Oak. There must have been good orange prices in those years. A great deal of sociability was always a part of political activity. The Colonel F.M. Chapman Ranch was the scene of a rally when California Governor Gillette visited Covina. This was the Palmetto Ranch, and it included at least 80 acres on the southwest corner of Cypress and Grand Avenues. The home was built with more than 800 wagon loads of rock from the San Gabriel River. Speaking of social gatherings, Kuhlman Hall, upstairs over the Depot Restaurant on the southwest corner of Front and 2nd Streets, was the first place in town large enough for dances, theater productions, lodge meetings, political gatherings, and so forth. The 1902 high school graduation activities were held here. The Monday Afternoon Club, later organized as the Covina Women's Club, built a fine new clubhouse on the northwest corner of Citrus and Center Streets in 1904. The architect for the Riverside Mission Inn designed this building for the club. It served also as a meeting place for many activities for many years. This property was sold in 1960, and groundbreaking ceremonies were held for the start of a new and ever finer building. Shown on the left is past President Mrs. J.R. Elliott, who, as a child, came to this valley in a covered wagon. This groundbreaking resulted in the fine new building shown. It was built on the east side of San Jose Street, south of Badillo. For the first time, the women of the club enjoyed good areas for parking and many features needed for years. The mortgage for this building was burned in 1978. The men of the community also enjoyed social and other activities. Members of this early bicycle club thought nothing of wheeling for a day's outing to Long Beach or Santa Monica and return. This gun club held target practices, competition shooting, turkey shoots, and so forth. They also enjoyed shooting in the open fields south of Walnut Wash to Valley Boulevard. Various birds, rabbits, squirrels, mountain lions, coyotes, deers, and other game was plentiful for many years. After the conclusion of World War I, an activity not talked about too much was a well-organized chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. This chapter included many influential men of the community. Most of the activity of the Klan was concerned with so-called labor agitation. The horses were hooded because most everyone knew the owners of every horse in the valley. An early-day post office was located east of the alley, east of Citrus Avenue, on the north side of Badillo Street. It was thus handy to the P.E. Railroad, which brought the mail from Los Angeles or San Bernardino. Those pictured delivered all mail to residences from Charter Oak to Baldwin Park, including West Covina. Above the post office was the Home Telephone Company offices and the Justice Court. Adjoining the post office to the east was the newspaper plant of the Covina Argus. Inside this post office, Postmaster Lewis Matthews, longtime editor of the Covina Argus, supervises all mail delivery in the valley with a staff of 3. That is, he served as postmaster when the Republicans were in the White House. A very modern post office built in the 1930s was located away from the center of town at the southwest corner of 2nd and College Streets. It seemed extravagant to many in those days. However, the great influx of people in the 1950s and 60s forced this big building to become just a small branch office of a new and much larger post office on Rimsdale Street, west of town. Early Covina's volunteer fire department was always considered a model for others to emulate. A 1910 model Winton Auto, owned by Covina Garage and Machine Shop, was converted into a shop truck and was volunteered to pull the ladder wagon and hose reel cart whenever the volunteers were called to fires. In 1911, the city constructed its first building, the fire station shown in the background. By 1914, the men of the department were considered a select group. They headed many prominent community activities, such as social gatherings, patriotic parades, and so forth. Shown on top of the new Boyd fire truck is a picture of then President Wilson, heading a parade, no doubt. Each new fire truck purchase called for a new picture, with the volunteers in prominent view. This was a Mack truck. Finally, when the city area expanded and more than one fire station was needed, the volunteers were disbanded, and a city force with the most modern equipment has since prevailed. The Home Telephone Company of Covina served anyone who could subscribe from San Dimas to Baldwin Park, including Azusa, Glendora, and the Puente Valley. Manager C.E. Crawford and his office force take care of the switchboard, handling a possible 200 connections hoped for in the early 1900s. The first building of the Episcopal Church was moved from 3rd and Badillo Streets to the northwest corner of Puente and Hollenbeck Street, where it has served for many years as a Girl Scout house. The Covina Lions Club, organized in 1923 and shown here, gave a band shell to the city as the first facility in the new Covina Park on 4th Street. They have continued the yearly presentation of park facilities ever since. For a time during World War II, when labor was extremely short, the Lions Club picked oranges one afternoon each week. German and Italian war prisoners housed at the fairgrounds were being used at the time, and no one questioned a wetback as to his legal status, or if he or she would just pick oranges. In the early 1920s, Reverend Richard Gentry, pastor of the First Christian Church, organized a community men's Bible class. It first met at the Star Theater, as shown, and later at the Covina Theater. Meetings were held on Sundays prior to the regular church hour. Also about this time, many retired Army flyers purchased salvaged Army training planes called Jennies. They barnstormed the country, and for $5 or $10 each, took people aloft for their first flight. A flat field near Citrus and Cameron was a favorite spot for this activity. The Covina Garage and Machine Shop was organized by 5 Covina area auto owners as a co-op in 1901. It was acknowledged as a principal reason for Covina becoming an auto center at an early date. Auto enthusiasts are shown pictured and gathered for the start of a day's tour. In 1915, the Ford dealer lined up 25 new Model Ts as a publicity stunt. Shown on the north side of College Street looking toward the Citrus Avenue are the First Methodist Church, the Ford Agency, and the First National Bank. The 4th Ford car ever built by Henry Ford was displayed in Covina, again in front of the Methodist Church. Lark Ellen Street is named for world-famous concert singer Ellen B. Shaw. Her own composition, The Lark, combined with her name Ellen and the fact that her home was on an orange grove on the southwest corner of San Bernardino and the street shown, contributed to the naming of Lark Ellen Street. The interior of the popular ice cream parlor, the Palace of Sweets, brings back fond memories to very old-timers. It was handily next door to the Isis Theater and a few doors north of College Street on the west side of Citrus Avenue. Covina was always proud of its dominant place in the citrus industry. The Board of Trade, later named Chamber of Commerce, made sure that the name Covina was prominently displayed at county fairs, at the Riverside Orange Show, and wherever the opportunity presented itself. The Masonic Home for Children moved from San Gabriel to Covina in 1915. 3 buildings formed the nucleus of what later became a tremendous complex for this wonderful community of youngsters. This location amongst the orange groves was chosen as an ideal site so the children could grow up in country-type surroundings. It is a tribute to the character of the community that Covina remains as an ideal site for the purpose for which the Masonic Home is intended. The American Legion always had a strong unit in Covina. Among other early activities, funds were derived by staging boxing and wrestling matches in an arena on the park property facing Badilla Street. Advertising was sold to augment this impressive entrance gate to the arena. A bank was recognized as a first necessity. Prior to 1900, the First National Bank was organized and a fine building was built at the northwest corner of Citrus and College Street. Note the home next door, indicating how far north the town was expanding. By 1904, cement sidewalks and curbs extended for several blocks along Citrus Avenue, although dust from the street was still a problem. By 1910, the merchants, by demand, got paving for Citrus Avenue. The wagons shown are unloading the first asphalt for this job. The second bank in town, the Covina National, is shown at its second location, the northeast corner of Citrus and Badilla Streets, having moved across the street to the east side of Citrus. Incidentally, Covina was the first incorporated city in the United States to have every street and alley paved. Teams containing 8 horses brought grain through town without impeding traffic. It was delivered to San Gabriel Valley Milling Company at 122 North Citrus Avenue. Seen in the background with arched doorways are the Isis and Star Theaters. The Vendome Hotel, northwest corner of Cottage Drive and Citrus, serves as the background for this tally ho. This popular way for special groups to tour the countryside on Sundays and holidays was provided by proprietors of the 4 liver stables in Covina. These are the same horses, cleaned up a bit, that on other days were used to haul merchandise, farm products, and so forth. Between 1900 and up into the 1920s, National Guard units were formed and their parades and marching became a common sight. Valley units did yeoman service in San Francisco during the time of the 1906 earthquake. Army artillery units moved across country frequently during the time of World War I. And also during this time there was an Army school for stationary observation balloons in Arcadia. The balloons were easily visible to the people of Covina. A 4th of July parade includes as leader Mr. James B. Raymond, who was to become the last Civil War veteran to live in Covina. This parade included veterans from the Civil War, Spanish-American War, and World War I. A model Army tank was used for publicity to sell war recovery bonds in 1919. The girl on the tank is a movie actress, perhaps Mary Miles Minter. Covina and Carol Nye, an actor who played a part in Gone with the Wind, as at far right on the tank. School was recessed for this event. For many years, Covina entered a float in the Tournament of Roses. Those round decorations, of course, are oranges. Lita Nash was a noted singer who lived with her family on Grand Avenue. Dedication of the City Hall and Fire Station in 1931 brought out a large crowd, as did anything else that was new. When Covina Garage and Machine Shop opened the first gasoline station in Covina, many Ottawists wished to be one of the first to purchase gas at the southeast corner of School Street and Citrus Avenue. Incidentally, gas was about 22 cents a gallon at this time. Lulu Dietz was owner and manager of the Star Theater for many years. Few realize that the first of the great chain of Cornett stores was opened in Covina. Mr. and Mrs. Joe Cornett lived in Covina for many years. Crowds gather for the first opening. 3 doors north of College Street on the west side of Citrus Avenue. The Palace of Suites was to the right. Crowds also gathered for a Christmas season Merchants Association promotional raffle. First prize was a 1924 Buick sedan. All traffic stopped for such occasions, as no one had any better place to go. Some before and after scenes show what may or may not be considered as progress in this area. From the hills south of Glendora, looking south, Glendora Avenue is seen to the right. The scar crossing the picture in the center is San Dimas Wash before it was controlled. Buzzard's Peak on the hill southeast of Covina is at upper left. Later, Buzzard's Peak, or officially San Jose Peak, is all that remains unchanged, while Mount Wilson at upper left shows plainly most any day from the hills near the end of Lawrencita Drive. Holt Avenue, later the San Bernardino Freeway, cuts across the center of the picture from left to right at an angle. California Preparatory School, and later called the Baptist Seminary, is at the right. Here's the same view later. Old Baldy, always visible in the old days, is a backdrop for the citrus and avocados on the hills south of town. Cameron Avenue, just west of Grand, is visible at the lower right. Here's the same view 30 years later. Mount Wilson in the background from a point south of Cameron, east of Citrus Avenue, and later South Hills Golf Course in the foreground from about the same spot. Looking toward Mount Baldy from west of Azusa Avenue, south of Francisquito, Azusa Avenue did not extend south of Francisquito until about 1965. Later, Azusa Avenue became a 4-lane highway, but Mount Baldy remains ever the same. An interesting view taken toward Mount Baldy clearly shows the intersection of South Barranca Street and Cameron Avenue. Teams of horses are preparing the field for sowing grain. The circle at the right is a sheep corral from a photo taken in about 1920. 50 years later, South Hills High School in the near foreground. From about the same spot, looking toward Covina in the center of the photo, Citrus Avenue is at the left and Barranca at the right. The scar to the right of Citrus Avenue below Covina is Charter Oak Wash, where it enters Walnut Wash. The scar area was later covered by the Eastland Shopping Center. Approximately the same view 50 years or more later. Traffic was not a problem in the 1930s. Workman Avenue, looking east from Citrus, indicated that the main activity was the diversion and measuring of irrigating water through the concrete weir box shown under the street sign. Workman and Citrus are both a bit wider, and traffic lights replace the weir box. Looking to the north, Citrus Avenue at Workman was just as serene in the early days. But later, citizens as well as autos wait for the traffic lights for safe crossing. Hollenbeck Street ran north only to San Bernardino Road in the early days. Hamilton Temple is traveling toward Badilla Street in his 1901 Mary Oldsmobile. Note the palm trees as they were in about 1907 and as they grow on the same location for 70 years. San Dimas Wash was uncontrolled where it crosses Azusa Avenue in 1914. Many acres of valuable orange grove land was washed away in this flood. Later, the Army Corps of Engineers helped the flood control district develop a series of concrete channels below the foothills. Orange groves were a beautiful sight, whether in bloom or with ripening fruit. The aroma of orange blossoms when the whole valley was in bloom is indescribable. These trees gave way for the first outlying Covina Fire Department station on Cypress Avenue east of Azusa Avenue. The grove in the background remained for some time. The Covina Country Club, a men's club, was located at the northeast corner of 2nd and San Bernardino Road. Businessmen entertained clients here, where a Chinese cook prepared lavish lunches for members and guests. Food continued to be served on the same location for many years. The C.E. Bemis home on the northwest corner of 2nd and Badilla Streets was converted into the first hospital in the valley in the early 1920s. Mrs. Graham and her sister, Miss Whitler, started this enterprise with the help of local doctors. It later moved to a new facility at 4th and College Street. It was finally reorganized as the Inter-Community Hospital and continued to grow, resulting in Covina becoming a large medical center. Growth of the hospital continued until the facility encompassed several city blocks. After the bandshell was built at the park, a tree planting project under the leadership of Edwin Job, shown with hands on hips, was initiated. Planting started with donated trees, planted entirely with volunteer labor. Trees were first planted at Badilla Street so passengers on the PE would be impressed with Covina's park. This resulted in ever-enlarging shaded areas as the years rolled by. Thousands have picnicked here, little realizing the effort and dedication put forth to start it all. The Andrew Carnegie Library replaced a small reading room that was donated by the Clapp Drugstore. This fine edifice at 2nd and Cottage Drive served the public for many years, although its basement was flooded in 1914 when San Dimas Wash overflowed and water came through town. The Baptist Church in the foreground was also hard hit. To more nearly serve the ever-increasing need of the community, a new library and new Baptist church were built on the same locations. Cement pipe, built by Bonham and Ritchie, was the backbone of the citrus industry. This operation was located on the property of Covina Irrigating Company, which at 164 East College Street is the oldest business enterprise to operate on the same location. It first located its office here in 1886, the land having been donated to the company by J.S. Phillips. You get the idea that water was important. The northeast corner of Citrus and College Street is a good example of change in the community. Starting with the Cook family home prior to 1900, later, a real estate office shown as is a 4th of July carnival crowd. Note the first fire hall and siren tower in the background, and the pepper tree for shading the jail. Later, the First National Bank built this building, sold it when it merged with the Bank of America, who used it until it later sold it to Mutual Savings and Loan Association. Ira Bell and Clem Ostrander operated a general merchandise and grocery store on the southeast corner of Citrus and Badilla Streets prior to 1900. The Bell family lived upstairs. Note the pepper tree on the Citrus Avenue side to the right. In the 1920s, Irvin Reynolds built his Buick agency and garage building there and remained until heavy traffic and the need for more room forced a move, after which William McIntyre built a financial office building on the same location, which indicates another change in 75 years on a corner lot at Citrus and Badilla Streets. Aerial views were not possible for many years. By 1960, Azusa Avenue, where it crosses Badilla Street and San Bernardino Road, show industry and homes crowding out the last citrus groves in the area. The Vern Job Grove at upper right and the Herman Allison Grove at center right were the last to go in this particular area. Northview High School had taken the west half of the Job property, and later the rest of the grove became the athletic field. The character of Covina really got its start when 5 dedicated gentlemen were elected to serve as the first city council. They in turn selected equally dedicated men to serve as clerk, treasurer, marshal, and recorder, all shown here. They started the orderly business of the city and nurtured it along as it progressed, if that is the proper word, from, well, words just do not come easily to describe it. But if it was progress, it all started here. Thank you for looking and for listening.